Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today, guess who is here? It is Riley Harrison Clark, and I'm so excited to have him on, so thank you for doing this.
Thank you for letting me.
We are here at Daywin Studios, so huge thank you to Daywin for allowing us to film here. We're actually in a writer's room, which we are going to get to later. We're going to talk about songwriting and a whole bunch of stuff, so get ready for it. So to start off, introduce us to you and your family, and kind of what you've got going on right now.
Sure. Well, as Victoria said, my name is Riley Harrison Clark, if you didn't know. All three names, Harrison being my maiden name. Anyway.
Oh my word.
That's a good joke. Huh?
That is really good, because you have to stop and think for a second.
Yeah, I mean,
that's actually not right.
Yeah, anyway. And I do have a beautiful family. I have two little kids. I have a 5-year-old little boy, and I have a 2-year-old little girl. And I have a wife.
We love her. She's amazing.
She is. She's fantastic. Her name's Megan. My kids are Colbin and Charlie Ray, and they just make me smile. They're so great. And what's new for me? What's going on? I've started a new transition out of a long career, hoping to begin an even longer one on my own here. So.
Nice, awesome. We're going to get into that. So, you just touched on it a little bit. How did you get your start in gospel music? You've had an incredible career so far. So how did that all start? Where did that begin? Well,
I as a teenager, an early teenager, I started attending the Steve Hurst School of Music, so there I would become familiar and begin relationships with artists that would be brought in to teach.
Right.
And long story short, I was 18 years old and had just came home to Oklahoma, where I'm from college, going to college for a very short period of time. I didn't have a peace about being where I was, so I came home discouraged, and I found myself on my face in my room at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, and I knew the Lord had called me to sing. I knew that He had shown me that I would be doing something like that,
right.
And so I told the Lord, I said, listen, you've got to show me what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it, or I'm going to have to figure something else out.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, less than 10 hours after that, Gary Casto of Tribute Quartet called me.
Wow. And
he said, hey, our tenor's coming off the road, would you be interested in joining? And I said, sure.
Wow.
So he said, be here, and it was about 3 days. He gave me 30 songs to learn, and so I moved from Oklahoma to Nashville, and that was in 2010.
Wow.
And at 18 years old, so
that's
awesome. How I got my start.
That's crazy. I know Tribute Quartet is just one of those quartets that, like, you don't get bored watching them. Like, y'all, so much energy, so much personality. I think that's the key, is there's so many different personalities on stage that you never get bored. It's awesome. I love them. So, what is one thing that we don't know about Tribute? Maybe on or off stage, one of the two. What's one thing we don't know?
Well, you sort of touched on, there's a lot of life on that bus.
Right.
I mean, one of them in particular has red hair.
And, not mentioning any names.
Yeah, no names mentioned at all. But it's a very lighthearted bus on stage. There is a lot of energy. It's something that we tried really hard to create there as far as the energy goes, and that dynamic in a concert. But what a lot of people think happens on the bus is what they see on stage. They ask, is Josh ever normal?
Right.
Is he ever? Does he ever slow down? And the truth about it is, yes. It's actually quite a boring bus. We've had people come on the road with us and think, they're just going to have this blast of a time. And they find themselves about the first day in going, so is this it?
That's hilarious.
So it's very chill. It's very, but it's a very tight-knit thing.
Yeah.
Those guys, even after transitioning out of there, which we'll get to, they've still been very involved in my life and in my family's life. So they're incredible. They really are.
That's awesome. It's kind of like you just save all your energy for the stage. And then
we do, definitely so. And honestly, we leave it all on the stage because we walk off sweating and panting.
All right, so you mentioned the transitioning to a solo career, but before you did that, you put out a solo record. So, what made you think, hey, let's put out a solo record and see what happens? What made you think, let's do it?
I had some folks come to me about 3 years ago and say that it had been kind of impressed on their heart, dear friends of mine, people I love and trust, and spiritually they've been good guides for me and my family. And they came to me and they said, we're really feeling like a solo album is something that you should think about. Now, granted, I've always wanted to do a solo project.
Right.
I mean, since I started singing, I wanted to do a solo project. And they came to me and they said that, and for a split moment, I thought, you're right, I do.
Yeah.
Because of the dream that I had had. However, the longer we thought about it and prayed about it, it just didn't feel right at that time. So we shelved the idea. And in about a year and a half or so after that, they came to me again. And this time it was confirmed in my own self that solo album was something. What a lot of people don't realize, though, is in that year and a half of shelving the idea, my life changed. A lot of things came into my life from my past, some hurts, some pains, some discouragement, and some things that had never been dealt with as a child, from my childhood. So life for me got really difficult and dark even. And if I had recorded the CD when they first approached me, I would have been able to record a CD of a lot of great songs.
Right.
But I can be honest in saying that my heart wouldn't have been on that album like it is now.
Right.
Because after going through and dealing with and struggling with all of these things that came up after that, I was able to present a solo project that was full of me.
Yeah.
And which is what I wanted to present anyway. Right. If I was going to do a solo project, I wanted it to be, everybody for years knew me as Riley Harrison Clark with tribute.
Right.
I wanted them to know me as me. Right. And so we wrote for that record specifically a couple things, and then I just chose from great writers and great songs that were pitched to me that fit my life, my family's life at that moment in time. Right. And so it is an album now of not just great songs, but great songs that have my heart all over it, So.
Yeah, and I think you touched on this a little bit. The title track is called, the album's called Welcome to Me. So what's the story behind that song?
Well, actually, a lot of people think I wrote that song. I wish I had. But I'll tell you, I firmly believe that song was written for my project. Right. Wayne Hahn, Joel Lindsay, and Jeff Baumgartner wrote that song. And in the very first listening session with Wayne, who produced the album, which was a complete God thing, I was totally thrilled by that. He brought that song to me, and he said, we wrote this song a long time ago, but I've never felt that I could pitch it to anybody that would be brave enough to sing it. And now Wayne had known sort of some stuff that I had went through, and he said, I'd like you to think and consider this song. So he played it for me, and immediately I knew I wanted to record it because it does. It really that was my heart on the project. Yeah. And not only did I want to record the song, but I wanted to make it the title track of the album because, welcome to the shattered, welcome to the scarred. Yeah. I'm living proof that grace can reach this far. That was me. It still is. I mean, it's all of us. But,
There's all of us.
So that song.
I know.
I wish I would have been a fly on the wall when it was written.
That's crazy. So and then not only is that song incredible, then also You Will Be Found. Like every single time I cut that song on, it's just like it's game over. What made you go, okay, I'm having, I'm going to put out a solo record. This song has got to be on there. Like, what made you pick that song?
Wayne.
Wow.
So I'm a huge fan of music and stylistically different genres. I mean, I really love the majority of it. As a vocalist, as an artist, creativity comes from all of that. In the same time, I'm a vocal coach, and the more I can listen and hear techniques of other genres, it helps me teach. Right. Not only grow as a soloist, but to teach others. Right. And so, stylistically, I love all kinds of music. Particularly Broadway tunes. I love big, thick tones and how that's created and whatever else. And well, Wayne brought me You Will Be Found. He said, there's a new song that I'd really like you to think about. and again, he didn't even play it for me, and he said he would just send it to me. And so I got it in my truck on the way home, and I put it in my radio and just cranked it up. And I didn't get halfway through the song before I texted him and said, yeah, write a chart up. I mean, we're going to sing it.
Right.
And and that's actually, again, that was a complete God moment, because lyrically of that song, it fit. It fit exactly where I was, exactly what I had been walking through.
Right.
And so I can quote so many of the lyrics in that song. And you know, when we were recording this, interesting fact, sometimes when you record a secular, for lack of better words, song, though it may sound like an inspirational song or a gospel song even, a lot of people that record that may want to change a lyric here and there so that they can help enforce where they would like it to be played and sung, you know. And in the studio, we recorded one of the lines that, you know, said, I said I could quote all the lyrics, and I can't think of one of them. The premise is that there will be people that, and we thought, you know, do we want to change that to God? Do we want to change that to Jesus? Or something along the lines of. But the more we thought about it, the more I realized that no, because God sent so many people into my life. God had people searching for me to find me in the middle of this difficult time. And so, yeah, we left the lyrics, and there are a lot of people that don't know where it came from. That just assume that it is, you know, a gospel song. And lyrically, I mean, it is a very encouraging song. But I love that. Oh, I love that tune.
I know, it's amazing. Every single time, like I said before, every single time when that comes on, I'm just like, oh, it's crazy.
Yes, love it, absolutely.
So you were a part of Tribute for was it 12 years? Well,
9.
The group's been
the group's been around for 12, and I was there for 9.
9 years. So what made you decide, okay, why don't we try something new, something different? What made you realize, you know, you're ready to transition to a solo career?
Well, back to me wanting people to hear my heart as an individual. It's hard at times for individuals in a group to be known by something other than what that group is. For instance, as I said, a lot of people knew me as Riley with Tribute. They didn't know me as Riley in any way. Now, granted, Tribute was very good about allowing people to get to know us personally. Gary was really great to try and spotlight those gifts or those struggles that have been overcome. You know, Gary was very easy to work with as far as giving me freedom to do that, but it wasn't always me, you know, and that's what I wanted to show people. And I knew that I had started dealing with and going through all of these things in life to tell people. And so recording a solo project has always been a dream, but being a soloist has always been a dream, you know. And so I started really praying about it, and Megan and I, for over a year, had been praying and thinking and, you know, writing the pros and the cons, and then we'd just kind of not think about it because we'd get terrified, you know, of the transition. And truthfully, there was so much of us that couldn't imagine our lives without Tribute. Because quite literally, that's all my kids have ever known. I mean, Colvin started walking on the bus, you know, and that's all they've ever known. That's all we've ever known. Through our relationship before, when we were dating, we both started, you know, this whole thing together. So it's hard to even imagine our lives without Tribute, but we knew what we were feeling, and we knew what God was moving and orchestrating. And the closer it got to Tribute recording their new project, which is going to be fantastic, by the way. I've already heard some of the tunes. Ooh, it's going to be great. I'm excited to hear it. But the closer it got to that, the more I just felt everything settling into it's time, and it's time to move, it's time to transition. And two, I wanted to do it in a way that was healthy for everyone. I didn't feel that it was right to record a CD and then just leave. And so with that mindset, I went to Gary and I just told him, I started sharing my heart with him, and I told him that I really felt like now was the time, and he was so gracious in, first of all, hearing me out, but even in supporting me.
Right.
After that, it was like immediately we both knew that there was a peace in the back of the bus, and we both knew that in order for the great things to come for both Tribute and myself, the transition had to take place.
Yeah,
and
good,
so it did.
Yeah, so I know change is never something that you like. I mean, personally for me, when I hear something's changing, we're going to change to something else, it immediately you're just like, no, it's uncomfortable to change.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, the only good that comes out of anything is whenever something changes. So how did you overcome that fear of stepping out and saying, you know what, we're going to do something new? How did you overcome that fear?
What's interesting about that is the very first song that I wrote for my solo project was Running Down My Fear with Lee Black in this room.
Wow.
And we wrote that, and it was the very first time I'd ever co-written anything, and I was on the road, and because of some things that were going on, my quote for myself and my family was, we're going to run down we're going to run down the fear, and we're going to show it something that's greater, which is our faith.
Right.
The only thing that at times is greater than our fear is our faith in what is greater and who is greater. And so I was on the phone with Megan, and I said, I really want to take a great song to Lee. I didn't want to walk in there and be like, I don't really have anything, but thanks. And so out loud, but to myself, I said, you know what, but I'm running down my fear. I'm going to show it my faith. I'm running down. I think that's a pretty good hook. So so I wrote it down, and that's what I brought to Lee. And so much of that was God's provision in what was to come. Right. Because there have been a lot of times where that's the song that I've played, not because I like to hear myself. Right. All I can do is critique myself. Right. But it was because I needed to hear it. I needed to hear those lyrics because it is what I've stood on. Has it been hard? Yes. Has it been scary? Yes. And there have been so many times where I have woke up in the morning and immediately I was overcome with fear because of not knowing. And knowing that God has led you here, but not beyond there, at this point. While He knows everything that's going on, I do not. Right. And so the goal, the way that we've overcome that many days is simply by quoting the promises of God. No, you've said that you would never leave me or forsake me. You said that you would always be faithful. Yeah. You always have been faithful. Yeah. So I know you're not going to change now. Right. And so there were so many days, and still are so many days, that I wake up and fear has no place. Right. It has no place. Right. Fear cannot remain where faith is. Yeah.
I know, so oftentimes we forget that it's
it's
simple as just realizing who He is in comparison to what we are afraid of.
And the truth is, fear's dark. Fear is not of God. Right. And so when you introduce, if this room were dark now and I lit a match, dark would leave. Right. That's what God happens, is. That's what grace is. That's what happens when God Himself is introduced into fear. Right. Fear has to leave because darkness cannot stay where the light is. Yeah. And that was such a simple concept that I had really forgotten about it. But when you realize who you are in Christ, and if He's in you and you're of Him, then fear has to leave. It has no place. And so has it been easy? No. It most definitely is not. There have been more hard days than there have been easy days. I can tell you that. Right. But even in those hard days, God has shown His faithfulness. He's reminded me of His faithfulness. And I've just reminded fear that it can't stay. Yeah. It can't.
It's crazy because we want to make it more complicated than it is. Yep. It's like, it's really so simple. If you just think about it. But like you said, it's hard to put things into perspective oftentimes when
you're right.
And so many things.
And truthfully, Remember His Faithfulness, which is the last song on my solo project I wrote with Sue and Lee in this room. And it came from that concept of while we're walking through something that is so confusing, something that doesn't make any sense, it's not fair, it's really hard, it's really tough, while we're walking through those times, it's a lot easier to get through those times when you remember all of those times before that He's already done, that He's already been faithful. Because He can't change. He's not going to change. He's going to remain the same as He was yesterday, today, and He'll be that way forever. So if He was faithful once, He has to be faithful again.
Again and again.
And that makes walking through those times of fear and difficulty easier.
Yeah, man, that's powerful, powerful stuff. So we've been talking about this whole time, songwriting. When did you, I mean, for songwriters, you've got to have a purpose of like, if something happens in your life that says, okay, this needs to be a song, or I feel this calling to do this. So what made you go, hey, songwriting might be something I can do? Like, what caused that to happen?
Well, I used to write songs as a kid. Matter of fact, I found some the other day when a few months ago when I was visiting my parents. I found some. Now they weren't worth anything. Now that I know how to write a song, they weren't even worth revisiting. Yeah. You know. So I used to write, but then I hadn't for all of this time that I've been on the road. I didn't write. I didn't have any anticipation or really any thought. What made me start writing is when I had something to write about. Something came into my life, and one of these days I'll write a book. I'll explain a lot of things but my life started to change. I started to deal with things that I had only struggled with, because dealing with things and struggling with things are two different things.
Yeah.
I had started having to deal with things that had been a struggle for me, and I then started having more stuff to say.
Yeah.
And
more things
you're
to
not
process through,
helping anyone by keeping all of the good that comes out of the bad to yourself. And so, and two, I started seeing help and seeking help for different things. And one of the first things that numerous of those people would tell me is just start writing. Not necessarily even songs, just start writing. Start writing your thoughts, writing what you're feeling, writing what your heart says. And that's when it really started making me want to go, you know what, I can turn a lot of this into something good that will be able to be presented to to someone that needs to hear it and will possibly have a life change because of it. You know? So I've been so pumped and excited to be writing.
Yes, I love that. And like you said, like writing is super therapeutic, because a lot of times when you keep everything in your head, it's just not the greatest. And sometimes the things that you're thinking, you're like, nobody else is going to get this. Nobody else is going to understand this except this piece of paper and this pen right here. That's going to, understand what I'm trying to say. So I love that. What's one thing that songwriting has taught you?
One thing that it's taught me is that, first of all, if you're feeling it, you're feeling it for a reason. Good or bad. If you're feeling something inside you, there's something is trying to, in my opinion, be taught to you. Something's trying to be shown to you. There's light being shown on something that's possibly been in the darkness for a while. So if inside you're feeling something that's, I gotta move, this just does, so then what I've learned from songwriting is that I need to process those things. I don't need to just go, that's kind of, and let them go. You want to process those things. Both from a therapeutic standpoint, as you had said, but also because that, when you start processing it, you start to understand it. You start to cognitively go, that's why it's happening. That's why I'm feeling this way. So songwriting has taught me that you want to try and process all that you're feeling and all that you're saying, because that's where I start to learn. And being able to sit down, either by yourself or with somebody else, and say, this is kind of what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling. What do I need to do with this? You know, songwriting has taught me, and it's also taught me that you're given a story to share with somebody else. I mean, you're going through this so that you can share it with somebody else. People are always watching. They're either watching because they want you to fail or succeed. And if you can sit, when Paul and Silas were in jail, the shackles fell off of their arms and their hands and their feet, and the doors opened, and the soldier whose only job was to make sure none of that happened was going to kill himself when they approached him and said, listen, no.
Yeah.
This is why it happened. Yeah. He gets saved. Well, had he kept that to himself, his entire family wouldn't have gotten saved.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
So,
by telling other people, you're right.
Yeah, and so something good happens to you, God's faithful to you, it's because you need to tell others about it.
Yeah.
Well, other people are needing to hear that.
Yeah, and see your reaction to it. Yeah, I love that. All right, so tell us, what does the future look like for you? What's...
I was asked this in an interview a couple weeks ago, and my entire life I've tried not to specifically answer that question. I have dreams. I have things that I would like to accomplish as an artist, as a singer, as a husband, and as a father. There are so many things that I want to accomplish, and I'm working toward those things. However, I'm not crazy enough to think that I can make the greatest things happen, because the greatest things come from Him and from God and from letting Him do His thing. This whole process, I've been telling myself and others that if I can make it happen, it's too small.
That's good.
I only want the door. I only want to walk through the doors that He can open.
Right.
I only want to, and I've used this analogy numerous times. When He fed the 5,000, He gave the disciples the chance and the opportunity to feed them first.
Yeah.
However, everything that they came up with to be of a solution would not have done it.
Yeah, you're right.
So people would have left hungry if they even got a bite to eat.
Yeah.
And if they got a bite to eat, it would be because you had taken it from somewhere else to give to. He gave them that opportunity until He ultimately said, okay, now let me show you. And that's when everybody left. Not only left having a bite to eat, but full with leftovers.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing my best to be prepared for what's to come. I do still have dreams, and I still am, and I think God takes those into consideration. But as far as what does the future hold, I don't know. But I'm beginning a dream, and that's being a soloist. And I'm just going to try and stay focused and let Him take care of the rest.
Awesome. So the last question that I always like to ask, to wrap up my interviews is, what advice would you give to someone out there who wants to change the world that they live in? What advice would you give them?
Be you and tell your story. Everybody has one, and for a long time in my life, I thought that I wouldn't be an effective minister because I didn't have a story. Well, first of all, if you've been redeemed by the grace and power of Jesus and what He did for you, you have a story. Right. Secondly, there's something that God has done for you in some way, shape, or form or capacity. Share that story. As I had said earlier, things happen in our lives so that we can share them. As long as we're glorifying God through them, you'll be able to change the world with that. But secondly, don't stop. If you believe God's called you to sing, then sing. If you believe God's called you to preach, then don't be afraid to preach. There are a lot of people that will come up to me and say, I just wish I could do what you do. And my first question is, well, do you sing? Yeah, I sing. I sing at my church. I've been involved in singing at church, and I sing here and there. Okay, are you good at it? And not asking your grandmother, but asking somebody down the street, are you good at it? Because God is going to give to you in a way that He has called you. And yeah, I'm good at it. I think I'm pretty good at it. People, okay, good. Do you work on it? Sometimes, well, you may be slowing yourself down. But so many people see what we do and see what an artist does or a preacher and an evangelist, and they think to themselves, that's so far beyond what I could ever do myself. When that's not at all the case, particularly if you know without a doubt God's called you to do it. So listen to God and take every opportunity. If the first opportunity for you to sing is to sing in front of 5 people, sing in front of 5 people. A lot of people want to go from nothing to 5,000. And if you were to go on the stage in front of 5,000 people, you'd just stare at them. You're not ready for that. So be you, tell your story, but don't think that something is so far-fetched that you can't do it in yourself.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is to seek God and see what He has for you.
Right.
See what He wants from you in your life.
Yeah.
And go after that. Because in that way, He will begin to prepare you. He'll send people your way to prepare you.
Yeah.
He'll send the opportunities. He'll open the doors for that.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Yeah, I know sometimes we are our worst enemies. We say, we talk ourselves down so much. So I love that. Be confident in what God's called you to do if you feel that He's called you to. I love that. Well, once again, thank you so much for being on. This has been
very
awesome.
welcome. Thanks for
asking me. I know they're
going
to love this. Where can they find, your schedule,
Sure.
your solo record? Where can they find all that?
Sure. Well, all social media is under Riley Harrison Clark, Facebook, Riley Harrison Clark Music, or a personal page. Either way, you can find either one from either page. Also, Instagram, same thing, Riley Harrison Clark. My website is rileyharrisonclark.com. Awesome. You can find my album there. You can also find it on Daywind at daywindstores.com, iTunes, and the rest. And if you would like to book me to come to your church or your event or a venue near you, you can find all of that information through the website. So
awesome, yeah, and I'll put links down below so that everybody can just click on it and go straight there. So awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.